what you really want is a real estate agent who knows the market. You want someone who understands what you can and cannot afford. Think back before you were ordering your steaks through a subscription service where the steaks just showed up on your front door. Think back to when you went to the butcher and you were trying to decide the difference between a porterhouse and a ribeye and a New York strip. The butcher is the subject matter expert. And in this model, Zillow empowers real estate agents who are, in fact, the subject matter experts.
And today I'm really excited because we have with us the Vice President of Brand and Product Marketing at Zillow. Her name is Beverly Jackson, and she is doing some very interesting things at Zillow. Welcome, Beverly.
Hi, Barbara. Hi, Americus.
Hi, Beverly.
Oh, I mean, you're a company that I think everybody knows, Zillow. You just celebrated 20 years, and you're trying to figure out what your next step is for your next decade. And I know you've had a really interesting background also. Which one do you want to start with? How cool Zillow is or how cool you are?
Well, let's always start with how cool Zillow is because I pale in comparison. I trust me.
All right, well, let's start with Zillow. One of the things that I think is interesting is I do think people know what Zillow is, and they know it's in the real estate market. But can you explain to us or our listeners, like, what your model is, how you make your money? Are you a traditional, typical real estate company? I don't think so. So can you explain to us how the whole thing works?
Wow, you just went straight in, Barbara. Just straight in. Like,
Well, I can't waste any time.
big rock, no chaser. Big rock, no chaser. So Zillow is one of or the most beloved brand in real estate. Like everybody knows what it is. Everybody depends on it. Everybody leans into it. It is sort of everyone's secret obsession. It all started though because of this desire to empower consumers to, as we say at Zillow, to turn the lights on and to create some transparency for consumers, which anytime consumers have transparency, there's a sense of empowerment for consumers, right? And so that's always a good thing. And so if you can find a way to fill that gap, like that is where consumers like fall in love with you. And that has been the sort of resiliency of the Zillow brand over the last 20 years. And so if you think back to the narrative that originally Lloyd and Rich were just trying to figure out how to buy a house themselves. They're like two young guys just trying to figure out how to buy a house.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're a scientist or you're a math guy or a math gal, the thing that you want to know is am I paying too much? Like, how much is this worth? Like, can I afford it?
Exactly.
Those
That's
narratives haven't changed.
Yep.
That's the part I think is super interesting. So I've read some reports about Zillow, and it's kind of like it's in the world of social media and scrolling and things like that. And everybody's always been interested in real estate, the consumer market, like just as a neophyte, as someone who doesn't know anything. How much do things cost? How much? That kind of idea. And I think that that's what's so interesting about Zillow is that you tapped into the way consumers shop that don't know anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea is, if you think about it, I'll go back and answer your first question a little bit more thoroughly. So, right. So one of the ways that we make money is we provide solutions in the marketplace, right? And so we always say to real estate agents who are our partners in this journey of helping people to get home is that you do real estate so we can do tech, right? Because we're at the heart of it, we're a tech company. And that idea of creating the Zestimate and providing transparency, there's a fairly sophisticated algorithm that runs that ingests that data of every home in America and knows effectively how much it costs or how much it's worth. And then that level of unlock and transparency for the consumer has a value in the marketplace.
I want to build a bit more context with Barbara's questions and line of questioning here and to step back just a tad and say, give us, because I love this point, this is the interface of tech and real estate and the idea of these things coming together. Can you just give us really quickly the broad overview of what does the real estate market look like right now? Talk a little bit about, is it growing? Is it shrinking? What is the overall macro landscape look like in terms of, because you all have access to this data and information and you have sort of from the bird's eye view. So talk a little bit about this industry moreover, give us a sense of its size, its, all of these things that you all pay quite a close attention to.
So I am an incredibly talented marketer, brand person, social, digital thought
Yes.
leader.
Yes.
I am
I
not an
endorse that.
economist,
That is true.
Beverly's like, I am not an economist.
and I
I
don't play good on
am not.
TV.
Yeah.
Neither am I a data scientist. But I will tell you that there are a couple of things that are sort of universal truths. The macro is and has been tough for the real estate vertical, generally speaking.
Mhm.
That's the first truth. The second truth is that the landscape has become more competitive,
Mm.
and there are just challenges with how to make it happen.
Mm.
And the third reality is no one has stopped wanting to find home, because
Mm.
shelter is sort of like an intimate, personal, um,
Ah,
very up close
yeah.
and significant part of anybody's life. So there are
Yes.
these three things that are the realities, right? And so there's
Right.
not a lot that I can do or Zillow can do about the macro. The
Mhm.
macro is what the US macro is, and it will be
Yes.
what it will be, right?
Fair enough. Fair.
What we can do is to be on top of it. We can provide information, we can inform, we can support, and we can move to where the market is.
I I gotta interrupt because I really agree with that. When you think about how you buy or sell a house as a consumer, not as an expert, not as a
Right.
macroeconomist, what you really want to do is figure out how much is my house worth and how much should I pay for another house. Not at the macro level, at the micro
Understood.
level. That's really what I want to know. And
Sure.
what I think is interesting is what she said from the beginning is that Zestimate gives you a reference point for
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
right?
It is a
And
starting point.
therefore
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
therefore, I have an idea of, like, what I should expect to pay or not expect to pay.
Fair.
Like, I
Yeah.
think that I mean, I agree, the whole real estate market matters and buyer is it a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? Am I ever gonna but really, when it comes right down to
That's
it,
fair.
I wanna know how much I should pay
Yeah.
or how much I should get my house sold for.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what's cool about Zillow.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm gonna
sorry, real quick, just to build on Barbara's point. I love this, Barbara. You always do this. You always like take it to another level, a higher insight. Zestimate. That was all right. Wait a minute. Hold it. That was branded. That's incredible. Can you unpack the Zestimate brand and and
That's the
and
main secret sauce.
and connect it to why the Zestimate brand, the Zestimate uh, analysis is so much better than all that other stuff?
Yeah, because it's a
so
reference point.
Yeah.
so I can so there's so many things. There's so many things. Okay. So first of all, I'm going to say this. Before you worry about what your house is worth or what you are going to pay or what you can sell for your houses, every consumer starts with what can I afford? And
Mm.
so affordability is really the insight at the heart of the home ownership, home buying process. And before that, it is what does home mean to me? Because
Ah.
while home might mean a
Mm.
McMansion or it might mean
Mhm.
a two-bedroom condo overlooking the
Ah.
water, or
Mhm.
it might mean, a bungalow craftsman style home, right?
Mhm.
It could also mean an apartment that's really close to my job that
Mhm.
allows me to walk my dogs on a walking trail behind the community. It might mean a community gym.
Yeah.
It might mean close proximity to work. And so
Mhm.
we start with what is home and what does home mean?
Mhm.
What do I want? And then what can I afford? And then we get to all the whiz bang gee golly stuff that is technology behind it,
I
right?
like that
Got it.
whiz bang stuff.
Yeah,
Well,
me too.
good stuff. That's the good stuff. So let's talk about the Zestimate for a second. The Zestimate, I always think about this as the Zestimate, and I say this, I'm sure this is not what Rich and Lloyd were thinking when, I came along and decided that this should be the thing.
Mhm.
Okay. I think about the Zestimate as the original AI. It's the OG of AI, right? And so it took technology. So think about this for a second. And I won't speak to how old I am or when I bought my first home, but the reality is when I first bought my first house, it was a book that you got and you went into the person's office and you thumbed through this big old
Oh,
book.
yeah, it was awful.
And that was how we got it. Or there was some dot matrix printer. I know I'm making myself sound ancient here.
That's right, with the green and white stripes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But what
yeah.
I didn't have was a smart device in my pocket that connected me to just the neighborhoods that I could drive around. And remember, you had to get in the car with the real estate agent and drive around, right? And the poor real estate agent was just dragging this person from home to home. But imagine the power before you get in the car, before you get through that big book of knowing what you can afford and how
Mhm.
much something costs. My mom used to say this all the time. I have champagne taste and beer pockets. And so I really do like champagne. But the reality is you want to know what you can afford before you show up, and you want to know what's within your range, and you want to know what some and if you've never done it before, if you are a first time home buyer, what
Uh-huh.
effectively happens is you walk into this not understanding how real estate works.
Mm.
You don't understand the complexity of the deal. You're depending on a smart, informed, savvy, well experienced real estate agent to help guide you through the process.
Mhm.
And
And
you got
I
to
don't
figure
trust her, by the way. Right from the
Interesting.
beginning, I don't trust my real estate agent ever.
Barbara,
I
are
mean,
you revealing what's
no,
going on here?
I
This
mean,
is
that's what I like about Zillow. I
yeah,
really don't
I
trust if
understand.
she's out for her commission or he's out.
No. No, I would say, Barbara, I'm gonna disagree with you. I'm gonna respectfully come on your show and disagree with you.
Okay.
Um, and
You trust
while
your agent.
I trust I have been very, very fortunate. I've been very fortunate in my real estate transactions that I've had really smart, savvy real estate folks
Yeah.
who know the market, right? Because what you really want is a real estate agent who knows the market. You want
Interesting.
someone who understands what you can and cannot afford. So these are
Interesting.
small business, small entrepreneurs. And in some instances, they're not that small. These are multi-million dollar businesses.
Yeah.
And so these are local experts. And so
Mm.
think back before you were ordering your steaks through a subscription service where the steaks just showed up on your front door. Think
Uh-huh.
back to when you went to the butcher and you were trying
Butcher.
to decide the difference between a porterhouse and a ribeye and a New York strip. The
Okay.
butcher is the subject matter expert. And in
Mhm.
this model, Zillow empowers real estate agents who are in fact the subject matter experts.
Interesting.
They
Interesting.
really are.
Let me I want to build on Barbara's point. You tell us, Beverly. I'll bet, maybe I'm wrong,
Okay.
but I will bet that Zillow has some kind of mechanism that vets the real estate agents, and perhaps there's some sort of rating that let me get the 5-star real estate agents, or the ones that are consistently getting super high evaluations from the individuals that they're selling to. Is there some kind of mechanism that allows for that discovery?
So I don't know that it's every real estate agent is responsible for their business. What Zillow is building, and so if you go back to one of Barbara's original questions, is what is the Zillow business model? It's in fact a two-sided marketplace, and it's really four businesses in one. And we can unpack that later. But in the two-sided marketplace perspective, we are serving up information to consumers to empower them in their transactions. For real estate agents, what we are and real estate
Ah,
professionals,
I
what
see.
we're
I see.
building are
Like
tools to
lead.
help them be good at their jobs.
I
And
Right.
see.
so they don't have to build tech. Like they don't
That's
need
why
to go
she's
build.
defending the agents because both of them are her customers. It's
They're
not
both.
just the end user, it's also the agent. She can't, like, say what I said.
No,
So
Well,
well, because I don't believe that. I really do. I have like
no,
I think
you're
about.
totally right. I don't trust anybody.
yeah, that
Well, Barbara, I have
Barb.
trust issues too. We can talk about that later.
That's funny. Beverly, Barbara doesn't trust me. Okay. I work with her every day. So this is just a thing. It's okay.
Okay.
It's a thing for Barbara. There you
But
go.
when you
That's
think
what's
about.
interesting. That you have to rethink what the model is here. Like, you're thinking about traditional real estate, but really she's talking about a two-sided platform
Yep,
where
absolutely.
she's providing information to the end user, and by bringing those end users on,
Yep.
she's providing leads to the real estate agent, and therefore, in this middle data
Yep.
platform world,
Yep.
they they can serve both sides, both the consumer and the customer.
Yep.
And we
Um,
and Barbara, to go to America's point where like you're asking me if there's a rating system for real estate agents, the beauty of the free market is if
Yeah.
you're good at your job, if
Hmm.
you're really able to do this,
you
like
should rise.
where I live, I expect someone to know the difference between Henderson and Summerlin. When I lived in LA, I expected someone to know the difference between Redondo Beach and Manhattan Beach because those are right next to each other in terms of communities, but the reality is they're very different. When I
Mm.
worked in Manhattan and I lived in New Jersey and I was
Mm.
like, this commute is too much. I can't keep going through the tunnel. When talking to a real estate agent, I expected them to have some level of understanding about whether or not I could live in Hoboken and still commute into Midtown. Like
Hmm.
you're expecting your
You
real
can,
estate
by
agent
the way.
to have, yeah, possible. It's possible. But that's what you're expecting, right? And
Yeah.
so like you are expecting a real estate agent, a good real estate agent, to know the difference between Morristown and Morristown.
Mm.
Like, that's what a good real estate agent
Right.
does, and the
Right.
market decides.
Okay.
Consumers decide whether or not that
Interesting.
happens, and that's like in any space, right? That's in any space.
Interesting.
Okay, so let me ask you, we're talking to Beverly Jackson, who's the vice president of brand and product marketing. So
Yep.
let's go to one of the topics that Americus likes, which is
Okay.
the Zillow brand
Yep.
and how you market. Now, one of the things I think is interesting here is that for whatever else, a complicated two-sided platform and data and blah, blah, blah. In the end, if you look at real estate, it's a pretty stressful purchase, and like my issues of trust aside, there is a lot of uncertainty, right? And so when you're building this brand of Zillow, as the vice president, what's your title again? Of brand and product marketing.
Yes.
Exactly what do you do to build that Zillow brand? How do you build that emotional connection?
Mm.
Americus was playing with the word Zestimate. How do
Mhm.
that's all branding stuff, right?
Yep. 100%.
So how do you
100%.
do, what do you think about? What are your campaigns like?
Yeah, and before you answer that incredibly poignant question that Barbara just raised, I'm going to layer on top of it. Barbara's going to be shocked by this, but I'm going to layer on top of this, Beverly, something you said which is powerful, and that is when you buy the home, the place where you're going to live.
Oh, I
That's
know where
all
you're
about your
going.
identity. That's all about. I'm
We
sorry, Barbara.
cannot resist.
I listen. I cannot resist. I love that idea that you guys are talking about because for me, it's like that is a natural gateway to messaging a conversation that can create the kind of connection that Barbara's talking about. That notion that this is my home. Speak on that in the context of Barbara's question about building the Zillow brand.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. I would love I told you this whole thing about how I'm this brilliant marketer. I would love to take credit for having built the Zillow brand, but it was well on its way to being an amazing, iconic, legendary brand well before I showed up. My job is to turn up the heat on it a little bit. My
Mm.
job is to take some of the new products, because I do products marketing as well, and I
Ah.
do B2B marketing and B2C marketing, as Barbara has so eloquently pointed out. And those are challenges, right?
Yes.
And I do this with a product that is very much an analog experience. Buying a house to date has been a very analog experience. Yeah, at some point, gotta get off the couch, get a tour, and go see the house that you plan to buy, right? At some point, you have to go through your finances and sit down with a loan officer and figure out what you can afford.
Hmm.
At some point, you have to talk to your partner and your family about where you're gonna live. At some point, it has to meet the needs of your career and
Mm.
lifestyle is, and whether you're commuting or working from home, or whether you like people walking on top of you in the middle of the night and doing a dance party, or live out in the woods by yourself. Like, at
Hmm.
some point, that level of personal, bespoke, what does home mean to me, has to
Mm.
become center of the narrative, right? And so for all the things that Zillow is, at the end of the day, our goal is to provide you with some level of certainty and
Mm.
support as you traverse that process, right? As you
Mm.
go through
Hmm.
that journey. And then and we can talk about the B2B side, right? And so Zillow has been the brand, has been what the brand is. But what we have been quietly doing, and not so quietly actually,
Mm.
but what we've been really hyper focused on over the last couple of years are two big important things: is building products that make this more transparent and easier, right? And so there are lots of
Reduce
products we can talk about.
uncertainty.
We can talk about buyability. We can talk about, a bunch of the other products that have come to market in the last couple of years that empower consumers to do that.
Hmm.
And then we have to create some level of trust in the storytelling for consumers,
Exactly.
that they can trust us with their data. They
Hmm.
can
Ah.
trust us with this journey. They can ask questions and feel like somebody's got their back.
Ah.
And we will always double down on, which is one of the reasons why I took this job, is that consumers are our North Star. Consumers are in the middle of all of this. And so, well before you start to think about the value prop of Zillow to a B2B audience or an agent audience or partner audience,
Hmm.
it doesn't work if consumers don't trust us. To
Exactly. And I think
increase-
that's really important because this is a scary thing. For
It
most
is.
people, this is like the biggest purchase. You
Yeah.
feel like you're making an investment. You can make a really
100%.
stupid investment. And what
Right.
Americans would saying is I don't understand the macro environment and, who does, and all these other things.
Right.
And if I make a mistake here, I could just turn my life upside down. So
Right.
I really want to feel that trust that you're talking about. And if you give me a brand and data,
Yes.
and expectations, that makes me just takes a little bit of that uncertainty out of it. I think you've
Interesting.
gone a
Think about this
long
for a
way.
second. So think about this for a second, Barbara. If you think about what the brand means, because remember, Zillow also has a rentals business,
Mhm.
right? And so if you're a homeowner, like back in the old days, like, in the 2020s, in the early 2020s, when you had a house and maybe you wanted to buy a bigger house, some people were very fortunate. They could keep their first house and then they rent out that first house and they move on to a bigger house, right? And so some renters decide, hey, I don't know if I want to live in this kind of an environment. I might want to rent a house.
Mm.
Some renters love living in multifamily environments that are shared community environments, right? People like that, especially if you're younger in life. But we're now finding out that older people also like rental communities because they provide community. And so it always goes back to, for me, what does home mean
Mm.
for that consumer? And so the brand is always interested in creating marketing or content or campaigns that center on that. And so I want to speak to what we're currently working on and what we
Yeah,
recently just
that's
launched,
cool.
right? Because this gets to the heart of Barbara's point. You got to start someplace.
Mhm.
This is the first time you've ever done it. You don't know. It's confusing. What is title insurance? I don't really know. Do I need a mortgage? What's an interest rate? How do you calculate it? Like,
Variable versus fixed. Oh
yeah,
my,
do I need a
My
50?
stress level is rising as we're speaking. I don't know what's going
very
on here.
Like, what's
stressful.
my debt ratio? Like, how
Yeah.
much do I need for a down payment? Like, all those things, right? What are seller points? What are buyer's points? Like, what's the commission that I got to give to somebody to do this for me? Because I need a professional, right? And
Mhm.
by the way, no one ever goes into their lawyer's office and negotiates with their lawyer. I'll give you $500 an hour. No, I want $750. So why you do that to a real estate agent who's
Mm.
bringing you a level of expertise? But that's me
Interesting.
defending real estate agents. So let me go back to consumers and mind my business. Okay. All right. So here's the deal. We launched recently something called Someday Starts Today. We launched it on Grammy Sunday, and so you're going to see this for us. And this is
Uh-huh.
really important because this isn't a campaign for us. This is really, really important for the team and how we thought about this. And so the insight, we had a lot of data that this was hard. One of our executives said that, 50% of the people that buy a house cry at some point,
All
right?
the
Mm.
time, throughout the entire process. It is so
Wow.
stressful.
Barbara,
I'm sensing a theme here,
this
a very clear theme here. Yes.
America's the next time she wants to buy a house or anything, will you call me? I'm going to get on a plane and come to
We're both gonna go over to Barbara's house, Beverly, and we're just gonna give her a nice warm blanket. We're just gonna calm her down.
Yes, we're gonna give her that weighted anxiety blanket. We
Yes.
can take some of this
Yes.
away from you, Barbara. We really can.
Yes.
But the reality is that the anxiety of not knowing, right? And for a lot of consumers, and we used to say young consumers, but the reality is we're talking about millennials at this point. And millennials, no disrespect to them, but they got a couple of years on them now. And so when we talk about millennials having done this for the first time and having the anxiety of like, I'm at a certain age and I'm never going to be able to buy a house or I can't figure out how to do it. And people get stuck by the enormity and the complexity and the intensity and the emotional sort of stress of having to do this. And we've talked about this. We talk about this all the time. But the reality is you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere. And in this particular instance, the reason we landed on this campaign or this platform called Someday Starts Today is
Mm.
because the action will look different for every person. But you
Mm.
gotta take the first step, Barbara.
I
You
love
gotta
that.
figure out what's your credit rating? What can you afford? If you're a renter, are you ready to move into a bigger rental property, or are you ready to buy now? Like we talk about those different customer journeys because
Mm.
every place, if home is in the middle, everybody comes at it a different way. Think about it like a
Interesting.
bicycle spoke, right?
Yep.
Everybody's starting point's gonna be a little different.
That's great.
I
I
love
mean,
that.
really, historically, it's never been that way. It's always real estate. I've always thought about it as a game. I used to teach it in my marketing classes about like behavioral economics ideas of like the order you show people houses so that you can upsell them. Like I mean,
Yeah.
it was so sleazy. It was really a sleazy process. I mean,
Wow.
that's why I have these very strong feelings about
Very
agencies.
strong. Yes, these are strong feelings. Yes.
But
Well,
I
Yeah.
look at them as snake oil salespeople. They're really not, and I'm not. You're
Well,
not saying that. I'm
well,
just telling you
no,
what
no.
I historically think about. But
He,
the idea of starting with the ideas, okay, forget all that.
yes.
Let's start
yeah,
with you. Let's
yeah,
start about what you can afford. Let's start about what your vision is. Let's
yeah.
look at it from that point of view. That's such a better place to start
Yeah,
than where I'm starting
a
from.
and just to build on Barbara's point, Beverly, this is a great opportunity because to Barbara's point, we can now Zillow colleagues can
Yeah, we're on
now
your team now.
no, this is interesting because to Barbara's point, Zillow can play a role in rebranding the real estate agent. In other words, Zillow can help create that trust almost by association by look, we can bring this marketplace together, et cetera, and we can overcome those sleazy, whatever those baggage perceptions were of these folk. And we can play a role in helping to rebrand the real estate agent. Is that a fair characterization?
That is a shade of it. I will say this. I don't know who Barbara has been interacting with. Who are your friends?
Yes.
My friends.
Yes.
You need new friends. Okay. We're gonna work on Barbara's friends later.
Oh, that's
But
funny.
here's the thing.
That's good.
A lot of people, the process of just negotiating
Mm.
is overwhelming. And Barbara just said it when she talked about buyers versus sellers, right? And so having someone who's fighting for you is really important, right? Having an agent who
Ah.
understands what you're actually looking for and can help you get to the good stuff faster. And in some markets, think about this for a second. The home buying process can be incredibly competitive in some markets and in some macro environments. So you want a savvy, smart agent who knows how much a house should cost, how much that neighborhood is worth, what you can really afford, where you can flex, where you can't flex, where you can make the trade-offs. Like having that person and us providing that real estate agent with the
Mhm.
right tools to get the job done, game changer. But
Mm.
we share, because Barbara pointed out, we share a consumer, right? And real estate agents, we need to make this easier for them as well. Like, so if you think about it, if the person is sitting on their sofa after a long day, after a long commute, the kids are in bed and they're trying to figure out like what's next, what can we afford? We're ready to make the move, we think, we're not sure, and they're scrolling around on Zillow. Having an agent by your side in that process empowers you even more. And so
Like a personal trainer.
this is my plea to Bart to think about the power of a real estate agent, a good real estate agent, as your partner in this. And so you wouldn't go into a legal court case without there any other kind of legal court case.
No,
You
Yes.
would go
that's a
in.
much better positioning than my
Yes, yes.
You
Never
would go
represent
in.
yourself in court.
Yeah,
The old saying.
that's a whole.
or I don't even want to represent myself in, athletic stuff. I like to have a personal trainer help me.
Understood.
I don't
You
want
gotta
to
have a
damage
personal
my body.
trainer. If you got a twinge in your back, you don't try to become the
No, I don't
orthopedic
want to fix
surgeon and
it.
self-diagnose
Someone
yourself.
who knows what they're doing helping
And
me.
so I think Zillow has a very healthy respect for real estate professionals, right?
Ah.
But for all of that, nothing happens without empowering the consumer. And so when we think about the next 20 years of Zillow or the next 10
Mm.
years of Zillow or the next
Yeah.
1 year of Zillow, I really do want well-informed, empowered,
Yep.
thoughtful uh, clients, consumers, buyers, and
Mhm.
sellers who have access to as much information as they can possibly have access to. I want it as
We're running out of time here. But what you're describing is, in some sense, the world of AI, the world of data, to the degree, and I think of it even in medicine. I've been reading about how many patients use AI before they talk to the doctors, and the smart doctors encourage that because it makes the patient more informed, ask better questions, and you can get right to the point. And I think that's what you're saying here. Instead of fearing the agent, you walk in with knowing what you want, which is the way you started,
Interesting.
and having the data that empowers me to understand what I can afford and what my expectations should be set at. And then I work with a partner who like uses your platform to identify appropriate leads, and you're kind of like a dating service in some sense.
Yes.
You're setting up these partnerships, and you've got a better informed consumer because of the Zillow data, and you have an agent picking out the right consumers that they're willing to spend time with, and
And helping
hopefully
them find the right house and helping
right,
them
and
find the
then you
right.
find the right thing. It's the same thing.
Interesting.
I think this is the world we're coming into, the use of data, the
Yeah.
use of AI to empower consumers and to empower the agents.
Yeah.
And Zillow is what, 20 years in this business. They
Yeah.
figured it out a long time ago,
Yeah.
and the rest of us are just catching up.
Yeah.
No, 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 no. We do this with you. We do this with you. But I will say this, Americus, I want to say this. The AI is going to supercharge the ability to process and gather the data.
Yeah, it's a
We
help.
will still need to look for the insight.
Right.
And the insight is what will help us create campaigns and
Right.
creative and
Right.
messaging that
Yep.
resonates
Yep.
with a consumer that
Yep.
feels personal to them. And so
Yep.
what I don't ever want to do in this particular kind of business, and I've done lots of different kinds of marketing, right? But
No,
in
we
this,
didn't even get to
yes,
that.
you can invite me back later. Remember, I'm coming to Philly. I'm coming to Philly. But the reality is because this is so personal to each consumer and
Right.
each agent who's running their business, I want it to feel like a bespoke message to you. I
Right.
want it to feel like Zillow is thinking about me. They're meeting me where I am in my
Mm.
journey. They're
Mhm.
helping me get the information I need. And that's a different kind of campaign to run. Like that is, so you start with this platform that someday starts today and recognizing that everybody's today is different and everybody's starting point is different. But then you have to layer on like, where do I meet you? Where
Yep.
do you get this information? Is it on
Yep.
TikTok? Is it on Instagram? Is it
Yep.
on the Grammys? Is it on the Super
Yep.
Bowl? Is it
Yep.
at an experience where my local community college, no, not community college, my local Wharton is hosting a financial seminar on how to get ready
Yes.
for my first home purchase?
That's it. And we do that at Wharton, not Okie dokie you. Yes. No,
Well,
that's a
we are so
fantastic
out
point.
of time,
Yeah.
Beverly Jackson. It's been so wonderful talking to you.
Unbelievable.
And it is very
Excellent.
interesting thinking about what you're describing in Zillow. But I also think what you're describing is modern marketing. It's
Yes.
about personalized, customized marketing, bringing an end user to an agent, to, the B2C to B2B market, bringing them together on a platform of trust and data and information, that's customer centric.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're describing, and you're just introducing this to the sleazy world of real estate.
Barbara, real estate
Wow.
is one of the most
See,
iconic, important verticals in our economy. And
Beverly, I'm trying to get Barbara to open up more. She just won't express herself. I don't know why. I got to get her to come out of her shell. I don't know why. I don't know what else I can do.
listen, we're gonna get her an anxiety blanket. That's the
We are.
first thing. We're
Yes,
gonna
we are.
we're gonna throw up for her network and introduce her. I know some amazing, incredible agents. Listen, you know what's gonna happen, Barbara, is every one of my agent friends that lives in the tri-state area is gonna be ringing your doorbell. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
because there are some amazing, incredibly talented agents out there. So you
I'm
let us know
sure
when you're
you're
ready
right.
to buy your
I'm
next
sure
home.
you're right.
Awesome.
Anyway, Beverly Jackson, it's been a pleasure having you on our show. Where can our listeners go to find out all this information? Although I think people know how to get to Zillow, but tell us how to do it.
Sure. So I would encourage anyone to follow us on all of our socials. We are
Mm.
sharing lots of information there. And the beautiful part about our socials is we aren't just promoting Zillow. What we're doing is providing economic information. We're
Ah,
providing market data information. And we're literally helping to make it easier for consumers to be empowered as they begin this journey.
beautiful.
So
Love
just
that.
remember that someday starts today.
Ah.
Wow, that was well done.
Really well.
Well
We
played.
could talk about how professional is. She has an amazing background. That's why she's so good. Anyway, thank you so much. That's all the time we have for today. We would like to thank our producers, Dion Simpkins and Marissa Renna. And thank you all for listening today. We'll be back next week. Till then, this has been Marketing Matters on the Wharton Podcast Network. I'm Barbara Kahn, here with Americus Reed.